focused, conscious of what you're doing. That's when you build that into your subconscious.
All right, welcome to the very first episode of the Nashville Drummers Podcast. Today I sit down with Nathan Sletner. Nate is also a co-host of the series, so we'll be hearing from Nate a whole lot more as we start interviewing other guests. Nate is one of the very first guys that I met in town. He is without a doubt one of the most talented drummers out there, but more importantly is such a good dude and has a ton of knowledge and insights to share with you all. In this episode, you'll learn a bit about Nathan's background, as well as his unique approach on the instrument. We cover everything from networking in a new city, to what it's like playing on Broadway, to touring, and even hot dogs, yes. Enjoy this very honest, raw, and first episode of the Nashville Drummers Podcast. So you're from California.
Yep.
And from a small town called Redding.
Yep. Way up north.
So what brought you to Nashville?
Music. You know, everyone was in a band that was gonna make it, bro. Oh man, I was in a band. We're totally gonna make it. I mean, like, I really was. We had everything lined up. We had all the musical pieces, all the financial pieces, all the connection networking pieces that were all set and ready to go.
What was the band?
The band was called Showlander.
Okay.
And some personal decisions made by some of the people involved basically just stemmed the flow of all of that, just cut us right off from our financial backing, and we were back to square one. And so basically the chief songwriter and I decided we were going to both move to Nashville anyway, because the plan was to do the band, move out to Nashville, do the whole thing as the band. We had, all of that lined up, and then we're like, yep, let's just do it anyway. So he moved out here with his family, and then my wife and I moved out 2 to 2.5 months after him. They were just like, yeah, it's great out here. You should move. We're like, okay, we believe you. So that's what we did. Came out sight unseen.
And how many years ago was that?
5 years. Holy moly. Yeah. Five in November, but, it's 5.
Yeah, so you were one of the first people that I met in Nashville. So this is actually being recorded at Diamond Sound Studios. I first met you. What was that?
It was like celebrating.
Oh,
Diamond
sound
Sound.
like a dying trumpet.
Yep.
It's nice.
Thank you.
Okay, so when I first met you, you were telling me a little bit more about your gig, drum teching for Virgil Donati. Tell us more about that. How did you end up in that position?
Sure. Yeah. So there is a guy here in town named Josiah, who I somehow became friends with on Facebook, and I noticed we had a lot of stuff in common, and one of the things we had in common was an enjoyment of Prog music, and I met him at a show, and I was like, wait, this is that Josiah guy who I'm somehow magically friends with on Facebook. No idea how. We started talking, and we just were talking about progressive music and whatever. I was saying we should get together sometime, and kind of going back and forth about hanging out at some point, maybe doing something musical. And then he sent me a message out of nowhere. He's like, "Hey, what are you up to, man? Can we grab a beer?" Sure. So I felt something in the air when he said that. So we went and had a beer. Well, we met at Red Door, I guess Red Door East, and I literally walked in and sat down. Hey, how you doing? Doing well. What are you doing in September? Nothing. Cool. Want a tech for Donati?
And you knew who that was at that point.
Yeah,
right,
yeah. It was one of my top 5 for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I just he just said it that flatly. I just paused and I go, hell yeah. He's like, cool, I'll text him right now. He's like, I probably won't hear back from him again for a minute. Oh, no, here he is. So it was like, yep, sounds good. Like, so that was like decided pretty well instantaneously.
We all have these certain moments where once you're in it, you just like, okay, you're going with it.
Yeah.
And there's not much to really think about.
Right. Just get on the bus and go.
So had you been a drum tech before?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay,
Absolutely
wow.
not. Which is hilarious because
you just knew you were a drummer.
Yeah. Well, Josiah, I'm not. Oh, bless you, Josiah, for getting me that gig, because holy moly. But he literally said in the message, he's like, he introduced us to each other and said, Virgil is one of the premier virtuoso progressive musicians in the world, universe, whatever. He's doing his thing, and he's like, Nathan is one of the forefront of drumming and drum teching in Nashville. And I was like, I've never done that. You really shouldn't be selling that, because I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm like, I can set up a drum set, but his drum set's not just any drum set. You know?
Yep.
So basically his kit was shipped here, and a couple days before tour, me and the guy who is the tour manager / audio engineer for that tour got together and kind of pieced together how to set up his rack system and his kit. And we did it wrong. We did it totally wrong, because the way it was set up was very confusing. But thank God, on the spot, he was able to go, no, it's like this, and he showed us how it all went, and then I just took pictures and went from there.
What kind of guy is he? It sounds like you've got to know him maybe more on a personal level.
Yeah,
right?
Dude. Virgil is, you know how they tell you not to meet your heroes? Like, it's really not a good idea. Largely, that is very true. In this case, it's not. Virgil is a fantastic guy. I really loved hanging out with him. He's really honest and straightforward about everything. He'll let you know if you're doing something he doesn't like, but he's not a dick. He's just like, this is what I want. Like, do it like this. He was that way with me as a tech. He's like, hey, you're setting it up every night, and I'm needing to adjust it on my kick, my pedals. They need to be like this. So I'm like, okay, cool. He just lets you know.
Sounds like he's a really detailed guy, really particular.
Oh, and I will say he is extremely particular. It's like he knew exactly what he wanted, and he's that way not only in his drumming, but he's in that way in every aspect of his life. He takes care of his nutrition like nobody you've ever seen. These guy, he's getting up in the morning and going on runs, and he's like, I'm coming downstairs, and he's getting in back to the hotel, and like, oh, he was out there doing. He's like, I found a nice trail, and I was out there on the run. I'm like, oh, this is cool, right on.
You're just waking up.
Yeah, I'm like, holy, how do you have the energy?
Wow, and he's getting up there in age, right?
Yeah, he's 62 now.
Yeah.
But yeah, he at the time, was he 61? Maybe even he may be older than that. I don't know. I'm losing track of time myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, the things I learned from him are, one, to take care of your body. Obviously, and watching him, like, he would finish the show and he would relax, and he had like all these different essential oils he would put on, and like he would stretch out, and he was very good about hydrating, taking care of his nutrition. He would have his morning coffee, and then as he finished his morning coffee, he would put a scoop of raw cacao powder and then do like a cacao shot at the end. Like, man, world's strongest natural antioxidant.
Yeah.
Cacao. Every single day. And he had all his supplements with him all the time.
Yeah.
His giant bag full of them. But yeah, I learned that, and I was asking him about his ability to phrase in odd subdivisions. I'm like, you do these phrases that are mind warping, but you never ever lose the one. You always come back and just smack the one, just like grand slam it out of the park. His one is it's ungodly. It's ridiculous. And he was just like, yeah, just count. Like,
That's all it is, right?
It's just like, you just count, but you need to count. You need to practice counting everything. And it was the very like, you probably heard Chris Coleman talk about it. It's like, but you need to practice these phrases that go over the bar in polyrhythmic timings, and you need to figure out where the phrase needs to start in order for it to end at a certain point. You're like, okay, so if it sounds like this here, then it's going to be, you're 3 times through the rotation of this. And like, so you need to know that for every possible permutation of that thing. So he's just done a hellish amount of counting out those things. Mm-hmm. That's a big, big thing for him.
Yeah. And were you also gigging here in Nashville?
At that time, I had nothing going on gig-wise. Nothing. It was dry. Mm-hmm. And it was freaking me out. And that's one of the reasons I had been reaching out to Josiah. I'm like, hey, man, like, I don't know. Like, I'm just wanting to do something because I don't know what I'm doing. And again, that's part of my whole thing growing up in a small town, growing up in Reading. The idea of music networking is just like such an alien concept. I can't even begin to describe to you how strange it is for me to move to a place and have somebody go, no, if you just like go to a bar and just hang out, you can get gigs. Like, for me, coming from a small town, the idea of going out to network is just utterly absurd. There's no purpose in going out on the town, going to the bar to network with people that you've known your entire life. You know, I know the people in my hometown. I don't need to go out and network. Like, they know who I am. I know who they are.
Yep.
But that's not the case here. So it took me actual years to understand that, and then further years to start to become comfortable with that. Like, let me ask you, like, how comfortable is that shirt? Because it looks comfortable.
It's pretty comfortable.
Yeah, looks great. Yeah. It's a good fit on you, man. Yeah, it's a good fit. Yeah.
I've been trying to wear clothes that fit me
nice,
better.
Dude. Yeah, you got good style.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, growing up, I didn't wear, like, skinny jeans, but sometimes a small just wasn't quite the right fit, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's amazing how much difference there is when you just find clothes that fit you well. If nothing else, like, if no accounting for any other kind of style ideas, like keeping up with trends or whatever, it doesn't, like, if they just fit well, they look good on your frame, it's huge how much that's like a confidence booster, plus people take you more seriously.
Right.
But yeah, the bass player Phil, who plays with Thomas Gabriel with me.
Yep.
He's got a great sense of style. So I was like, hey bud, can I borrow you for something? He said, what's up, man? Like, can I like pay you to go to the mall or somewhere with me and just show me what clothes I need to wear? He was like, dude, I would love that. So we went to the mall. And in that moment he starts brainstorming stuff. He's like, dude, he goes, hear me out. You ever thought about all tracksuits? I'm like, you want me to look like a Russian? But we ended up going, and I did indeed buy a tracksuit. But yeah, like, you commented on these shoes when I walked in. You're like, they look fresh. Thank you. And they were purchased because of Phil. I purchased them myself. I went and picked them out, but he pointed me in the right direction.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're touring with Thomas Gabriel. That's sort of a recent thing for you?
Yeah.
Was that somebody you've been kind of had your eye on, or did that sort of evolve from those connections and the networking here in Nashville?
That actually came from Phil. So he's a friend, and we went to the same church of the city. We met there. We just became buddies, and basically we worked at the same job. Worked at Daddy's Dogs for years. And we just
plug for Daddy's Dogs.
Yeah, Daddy's Dogs. Yeah, little known fact, people: if you say Daddy's Dogs while you're walking by a Daddy's Dogs
just
stand,
like that.
Yes, if you say that, I know that you will never buy a hot dog, and so I will not even look at you. No, I don't work there anymore, but that was my attitude when I did work there.
You heard it from an ex-employee.
Yep. Not like, no, I know that you're never going to. I've never has someone yelled "Daddy's dogs" and then purchased a hot dog.
I mean, I think that applies for anything, really. Like,
Yeah.
You don't go into a restaurant and yell what you're about to order, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
McDonald's.
okay, so how was that gig with Thomas? And you've been touring.
Oh yeah. That's where we got there.
Yeah.
So
touring's back.
Yeah, it is back, and it's back with vengeance. It's
Yes.
awesome. Yeah. I would call it Americana rock. It's got like a hard edge to it. He's really into the newer rock stuff. Like he's into heavy stuff like Tool and things like that. But, at the same time, he's got that Americana thing from his grandpa. Johnny Cash. That's his grandpa. So we do a few Johnny songs during the night, which is always fun. But it's so different we do a funk version of Folsom Prison, which is sweet. It's like if the Meters did Folsom. Mm-hmm. But we'll also do just a couple of kind of straight up covers. We do a straight up cover of Ring of Fire sometimes, and it's always funny to me because it just feels like it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Right. Yeah, totally. So for the new drummer that's moving to town and trying to either make it on Broadway or eventually go out and tour, I'm curious your thoughts on how networking has really led to these opportunities for you. Because really, you're starting to become a name.
Well, I don't even know that I am a name. I don't think that I am.
I would argue you are a name.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, especially around town in Nashville and now with social media and, of course, the videos from Meinl.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into, but yeah.
Right on. It's funny. I feel like
I didn't know you before I met you here. I didn't know your name.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But you know my name now. I'm the Batman.
It all makes sense now. Okay. I never see you past 11 o'clock.
Yeah, true. Well, that's because I roll into a ball and turn into stone for 8 hours, and then I'm back in the mornings. How networking led to these things. Okay, so I mean, the Broadway thing is pretty straightforward. I have, thank God, a friend, one of my closest friends in the whole world, a guy named Seth Carlson, who I personally think is the most fantastic musician I've ever met, bar none. He is in one of the biggest bands down there, so he has brought me into sub for them, and that's a great networking opportunity. But then I would also make trips down to just go watch bands, and you can go and talk to them after. Hey, you guys sounded great. Let me know if you ever need a sub. Actually, I did that all the time with Daddy's Dogs when people would come through. I would see them holding a guitar or a bass or drums or whatever, and I'd be like, hey, did you just play a shift? Where'd you play? Oh, played down at Whiskey Row. Right on. Do you ever need a drum sub for your group? Like, oh, you play? Like, yeah. And then I would just send them to my Instagram. They could check me out, and they'd either follow me or not, whatever. But that was kind of how I did it. I think because there's a lot of advice that you'll get to go out and do that thing, and that can be important. But I think it's even more important to figure out how to network where you are naturally. That's, if there's a coffee shop you love to go to, like that's your haunt, you should be one of the guys there, and everybody knows you. You want to go or, want it to be like a Cheers kind of situation. Everybody knows your name there. So when somebody new comes and hangs, they're like, oh, hey, I'm blah, blah, blah. What do you do?
Right. Yeah, that's such a simple approach in theory, but I feel like human nature, we're sort of lazy. Like we want to do the minimum effort, but yet get the greatest result.
Right.
But to get those results, you do have to show up. You do have to talk to people, whether you're trying to play Broadway every night or go out on tour. You do have to be present, and hopefully you can play, right? So like you talked about, you're able to send people to your social media, so you have some social proof. However, many people don't want to put in that effort, or they just haven't defined their goals, like they try to do everything all at once and then become a master of none, really.
Right.
Like if you're new to Nashville, or really any city for that matter, it's okay to try a bunch of different things out and see what sticks, see what you're really passionate about. But for you especially, it seems like a lot of the networking that you did early on really led to a ton of opportunities for you. Now you're touring and
absolutely. Well, and I played with this artist named Dustin Kynes, and that came out of doing Broadway. I got recommended by Seth to Dustin because he needed a drummer for some Broadway gigs. He's like, hey man, Seth hit me up, told me that you're the guy I should go to because I need somebody. So I came and did it, and that was the thing. I came in, I told him, like, hey, I'm new to this whole thing because I was just really fresh at that time. And we got done, and he, like, frankly, he was like, hey bro, you're badass. Are you interested in doing any original stuff? And so now I play with him on the road. So I go back and forth and play with Thomas, and then I'll get back and do a run with Dustin. And thank God those haven't interfered with each other too much at this point.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And you're drumming more or less full time. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Which is, I can't even begin to say how much of a blessing that is.
Sure.
At this point. I was just like beating my head against the wall at my job for years. Hot dogs are rough business, man.
You wouldn't necessarily think about it, right? It's just...
Yeah. The way it works is we'd go and set out a cart. I would most of the time run the carts Fridays and Saturdays on Broadway. And people would ask, well, how long are you here? I'm like, I'm here until everyone leaves.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm like, yeah, I'll be the last person on the street, except for the idiots who are going to come up to me after I've been shut down for 20 minutes plus and ask me, hey bro, you got any hot dogs left? No, I don't, because I'm clearly shut down.
Right.
Come on, man, you've got a couple left. Die in hell.
That escalates at that point. There's no in between. Yeah.
That's basically where I go. Instant hate.
Oh man. Well, yeah, I'm super glad you're out of that, because I met you. I moved here during the pandemic, and that's of course a crazy year for everybody, especially musicians and Broadway.
Yeah. And then it was just like basically the Tootsie circuit that opened back up because they were like, yeah, screw you, we're doing this thing.
Yep. So what was last year like for you? How did you push through and really stay focused?
2020 was just all hot dogs all the time. that was it. Like that, I just worked that job, and in all my free time I was still just practicing, banging away, trying to level up so that when things opened back up, I hadn't stagnated in my skills. So thankfully I think that paid off.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, like if someone were to Google your name, and they'd probably now find the Meinl videos. And so talk about that. So you're a recent Meinl artist. Of course, those guys are also here in Nashville. But how did that come to be? And did you seek them out? Were you looking at other companies? Had you already been playing Meinl?
So what happened was I was in my room here having a jam session with my buddy Tony Campanovo, who's a sick guitarist here in town. And I got a text from my friend Forrest Rice. And he was like, hey, man, I just got done doing a podcast with Meinl, and Chris Brewer would like to talk to you. Would you be interested in playing Meinl? And I'm like, what?
That's like the dream question that any drummer could have, right?
I freaking love Meinl. They're awesome. So they're always at the forefront of my mind. And so we had a phone call, and he just told me what had happened, and yeah, he was like, hey dude, so can I give Chris your number? I'm like, yeah, please do. So I gave him that. He's like, he'll probably call you tomorrow. I'm like, okay. Now, I try to be realistic, not optimistic, because I have a natural tendency towards optimism, but because of that, I've been just like pummeled emotionally by getting disappointed by things. So I was just like, I'm not going to assume he's going to call me. I'm not going to try to get my hopes up. but I am. I'm like, I am hoping that he calls.
Sure.
Forrest texted me actually in the middle of the day. He's like, hey, he call yet? No. Don't. He's like, don't sweat it. He will. And I got a call. I actually got off work and I got a call from Chris. He asked me about myself and he just asked if I had played Meinl, if I liked Meinl. I was like, yes, I have. Yes, I do.
Yeah, especially so for those that don't know the bands that you're involved with. I mean, it's very progressive.
Yeah.
Prog rock, and so
yeah,
that was like the company to approach you would be Meinl.
Yeah, very true.
I'm sure other companies you would have also listened to and approached, but Meinl was like, it made perfect sense.
Yeah, it absolutely makes perfect sense. So yeah, it was just we connected on the phone, and it was just kind of that simple. He was like, well, why don't you come by on whatever day and pick up some cymbals. He's like, send me your information, the stuff you're currently using, and I'll try to make some cymbals available to you that would be comparable. And then so I did, and I also told him, I was like, hey, I don't have a cymbal like this, but I will tell you that the monophonic ride is my favorite ride I've ever played. So if you want to give me one of those. And so when I got in there, he went through the whole stack of cymbals he's going to give me. And the last one at the very end, he's like, and monophonic. I was like, oh my God, I love you.
Yes.
Yeah. So
that's when you knew, and you're...
that's when I knew it was true love.
Yeah.
I was about to quote Weird Al, but maybe I won't. I will. We ate together, we bathed together, we even shared the same piece of mint-flavored dental floss. The world was our burrito.
And that's it. Okay, end of episode. That's where we end it.
Sorry, Chris. None of those things happened. The burrito part's not true. Neither is the bathing. But the cymbal part, all true.
Yeah. Wow, I can't believe that was a year ago, right?
When that happened?
Yeah. When you officially signed on?
No. It hasn't even been. I don't even think it's been 6 months at this point.
Okay. Remember, we filmed. You needed like a video of you playing. Yeah. You came into Diamond with the cymbals and like.
Has it been more than 6 months since that?
Oh, I feel like it definitely has.
Oh my God!
Because we put out the video in this room.
Let's see. Now I absolutely must look at the dates on these videos. Okay, earliest one, February. Yeah, that was right. Yeah, right at the end of February. So not a year yet, but yeah. Anyway, doesn't matter. I was just curious.
Cool, great. We'll edit that out in post.
I'm so drunk.
Yeah, we'll just that'll be the excuse.
Is this not? Is it a real plant?
Oh no! Look, it's fucking green. It's like St. Patrick's Day. I don't even know. It's not real.
I just kept feeling like that was mushy in there. That's not. It's kind of disappointingly lacking in mushiness.
Bringing it back to the hot dogs.
Right. Yeah.
Texture. So, current projects. They say your first episode is always the worst or something like that. So
no, this is going to be gold, man.
It's going to be gold. Yeah, once we edit it and throw some music, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, it's gonna be
okay, so beyond touring, you've been doing a lot of Broadway recently, right? Like almost every night. And I'm wondering how that's been for you, because when we first met, you really weren't doing a lot of Broadway. And I know for many drummers here, it's sort of a love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
There's musicians that kind of scoff at it and, and that's their thing. But I think until you really understand a scene or try something, you shouldn't have that attitude, because it's going to benefit you.
It's good to just learn a bunch of songs. That's good for you. And
that's a good skill.
It really is.
And being able to think on your feet.
Yep. And honestly, getting familiar with a couple hundred new songs is not going to hurt you. And honestly, like they'll call other songs that I've never heard, and I'm able to follow along because most of them follow some kind of trope. And if there's some weird set of hits, like I can just follow the leader. They can do a little body English and show me with their guitar that, we're going to do hits right here and going to go like this.
Yep.
It's not hard to do. Once you're really familiar with how these songs tend to go. Mm-hmm. So that's a really valuable skill. But I'm not down there as much right now because I've been doing so much on the road. I keep having to say no to dates that are asked of me. I will be down there tomorrow night, actually. But I've had to say no enough because I'm playing all these road dates that I think people are like, oh, he doesn't want to play. Like, no, I do. I do still want to play.
That's a good problem to have, right? To say no. And then to bring it back to like someone that's new here. So then what do? You refer to your subs, or do you have like your own list of drummers that you would trust for that, or do you just rely on the band and their contacts?
I do like to reach out to my subs.
Yeah. The band trusts you. Like, okay, if Nathan is suggesting this person, then
yeah, absolutely,
we'll just go with it.
And I think that's a cool move because then you're benefiting someone that you like, and then you're also still connected in their mind to what they asked you initially for. Can you play Saturday night 6 to 10? No, I can't. But my friend Jeff can probably do it. You should reach out to him. Jeff's going to do it. Okay, cool. Now Jeff is Nate's sub for this thing. Right on. So I'm still like in the running.
Right.
Still in the mind of whoever's using the guy.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So you're in all these progressive rock bands, Crusade, Fly Information, which just put out their debut EP. And we'll have links to all of these in the show notes, so definitely go check it out. But you're one of the most technically advanced drummers that I've ever met. You know, you play music that's a lot more involved, is what I'm getting at, than the Broadway scene.
Yeah.
How do you,
definitely.
So like when you come back from tour, when you come home at 2 a.m. from a Broadway shift and you're laying down, like, what goes through your mind? Like, how do you balance those two seemingly opposite things? And of course, I do think there's a lot of overlap between Broadway and going out on tour and playing more advanced material. But discuss like what you're actually playing at Broadway, because I do feel like it's sort of changed. It's not necessarily the country pop, wagon wheel request. I feel like there's more bands playing Broadway now than just musicians.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And you're playing more rock music.
Yeah, well, depending on where you play, you'll end up playing more of one style or another.
Yeah, so it really does depend on the venue.
Absolutely.
That's why, so if you're thinking about playing Broadway, you should check them all out and hear.
You figure out which one you like. The thing is, each one is they're on different circuits. So everything, Tootsies, Rippies, Honky Tonk Central, and Kid Rock's, that's one circuit. That's the Tootsies circuit. It's under one ownership, one umbrella. So if you get in one, you're kind of in all of them. But there are a lot of, like, I like playing at Kid Rock's because I want to play more rock stuff. I'm not as, the country stuff doesn't tantalize my senses in the same way. The question is, how do I balance that with playing really, really, really progressive
music? It's like music where you have to, obviously multiple rehearsals and I'm sure you're studying the parts and you can't enjoy it as much. Like there's Broadway and that scene versus in the studio with Fly Information.
Well, you can't just like grip it and rip it like you can on Broadway. Like you can okay, I get kind of how these songs go. You can't do that with I can't do that with Crusade or like Fly Information. We'll be rehearsing one song for weeks to make sure it's right, because there's a crap ton of time signature changes and just little details that I have to get down. So I'm in my off time, I'm studying those parts. I'm trying to figure. Not only am I studying those parts, but I'm also working on the macro skills that will allow me to play those parts easily when I come to a rehearsal. Like, well, even if I walked in blind and they showed it to me, I would want to be able to go, yeah, I can basically I can BS my way through it. You know what I mean?
So what are those macro skills?
The ability to, in that case, decently strong double bass, obviously like good hand and feet coordination, independence, polyrhythms, like freedom with odd subdivisions, that kind of stuff. That's really where the money's at. Like, okay, I don't want to walk in and hear a part and go, I don't understand that, and I can't do it. I always want to walk in and go, okay, I get that. I need to memorize that, but I understand it. So there are still parts where I'm like, wait, hold on, what is that? It's because Crusade's written a couple parts that were confusing to my senses. I'm like, that sounds so weird. What is that?
And that's what excites you, and like to learn. And
I love that.
Have you always been into prog music?
Oh, I got into prog because my dad is a musician, and he taught me how to. Well, first of all, he taught me to listen. He would have me listen to all kinds of music, all kinds of genres, and he would ask me what the different parts were. He's like, he would say, which part's the guitar? And he would have me like sing lines or kind of like drum along with my hands. He's like, what's the bass doing? What's the guitar doing? What's a violin doing? And I would have to figure it out. So from a very young age, I was listening to that. And then he taught me how to count music. And then once I understood counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that's 4/4. Okay, great. This song's in 17. It's called Party in Simon's Pants. I was like, what? You can do 17. He's like, yeah, you can do any number you can think of. I'm like, holy moly. So I got into that very young, like snobbish, like if it's not difficult, it's not good.
Right. I think a lot of people kind of scoff at Broadway for being, it's just you're just playing easy pop hits.
Right. But that's total BS.
Yeah. Right.
It's different. It's just as valid. Now, not to say that some of the songs we play down there aren't just absolute horse shit. I'm just being real. There are some songs that I'm like, but there's a reason why we ask for more money.
Yeah.
Like, you said Wagon Wheel. I'm like,
oh yeah, someone throws in 100
like, give us 100, we'll play Wagon Wheel. Like, this is just, it's just such a freaking, come on, Wagon Wheel? Are you kidding me? I mean, it was probably a decent song at one point.
Yeah,
but it's just
a good song.
It's terrible to listen to now. It's so done. I'm so done with it.
Yeah.
But there are worse songs than that by a wide margin. That we'll have to do.
Yeah.
So there's truth in some of that critique, but it's also true to say that just because something is more complicated doesn't make it better. But the way I look at music is there are kind of three categories for me of stuff that I want to be involved in. That I almost think these are like the three universal categories for music. Does it make you want to dance? Does it intrigue you intellectually or creatively? And does it tug on your heartstrings? Those are kind of the three things that music has. If you can do two, awesome. If you can do all three, just phenomenal. Like, and there are a few artists out there who are doing it. Like, if you listen to Tigran Hamasyan, I think he's the most excellent example of that. The guy is just like, the music is so freaking complex. It makes you want to move.
Yeah, you want to dance, and then you're going to trip over yourself. But you have that. Yeah, it's funny. I was learning one of the parts. I forget the track, and it actually ends up being in 4.
Right.
But of course, like the way he plays it, it's advantageous to learn it as like the subdivisions. You know, like the 7 plus 7 plus 3 or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny, but sometimes that stuff actually is just in common time. You know.
Right. But, yeah, you can make simple things feel complex, and you can make complex things feel simple. So and that's good. I love using him as an example because I think his music is incredibly emotionally moving and just fantastic on every level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as someone myself that is also into a lot of that, like progressive, weird time signatures, and when we met and you were kind of showing me all these things, and I'm curious on your approach, because playing that stuff is obviously you have to practice a lot and you have to know how to practice, which is, I think, maybe more important than quantity, or something like quality over quantity, because a lot of guys maybe are practicing every day, but we're so distracted these days, and I'm guilty of it too, right? Like I'm not practicing the right way.
Yeah.
I'm not consistent. So along those lines, you call yourself the disciple of rhythm. It's a hashtag that you use on Instagram and something that we've talked about a bit in person. But for those listening, discuss where that phrase came from and what does it mean? It's such a cool topic, and I'm curious what that means to you.
Well, the whole disciple of rhythm thing came because I was hanging with my friend Seth, and we saw a show. This is kind of like where the genesis of this idea came from. We saw a show with this drummer. The band was called X-Ray Press, and Seth's comment about the guy's drumming was like, I can tell that it seems to me that guy is very interested and focused on learning rhythms. I was like, oh yeah, because he was a good player, but his ability to play complex rhythmic things surpassed his like facility. His like I was like, oh, he's like his hands and feet you wouldn't think of him as like highly technical, but his brain was locked into these ideas, and I was like, oh, well, that's what that is. I mean, there's a physical element to drumming, which I love. I love that, but I'm like, I really am. What's most interesting to me, I think, is the actual creating and stacking of various rhythms. And I just was like, well, I should just devote my whole mind to that. To like, it's an infinite world to explore. The physical part of it, there are limits.
Yeah.
But there's not really any limits on the mental part. There's infinite rhythms to be had and to be made. But there's a limited amount of notes that you can physically push out.
Right. Execute.
Right. So that's kind of where the whole disciple of rhythm thing came from. I was doing that almost as just a reminder to myself of the person that I want to be, the pursuit that I want to be making every day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I really love that, man. And I don't think a lot of drummers really think that way. They don't go that deep with it. They see a lick on Instagram, or they see like just a drum cover they want to do, and they're not really diving deep into the parts.
Yeah.
Or, we'll learn a cool lick, which is fine to do. It's good, I think, as a community, it's fine to share those kind of things. But I think people get lost into, the exact sticking, and he's playing it on the toms and then the snare. Like, take that and then do your own thing with it and reorchestrate it and combine, right? Like, combine rhythms. And you're always showing us, really cool licks and polyrhythms to try out. And fortunately, I've been taught by some really good teachers in the past. Shout out to Blake Fleming. But I instinctively know to take that and learn it, but then make it my own. And I'm immediately already trying to reorchestrate and think about it in different ways. So if you're playing 13 or 17, is your approach to first start off with do you said stack rhythms 3, then plus 4, then how do you approach that? What is your technique?
Man, I honestly, I know that that's how a lot of people do that. I don't. I just kind of
go all in for the...
I just go, I just kind of if I don't know what time it's in, I'll break it apart that way. But once I've figured out what it is, I try to get away from thinking of it like that. I can't, because I kind of want to be able to flow between those, and I don't want that to be in the forefront of my brain. Maybe I'll change my mind on that, and I'll figure out that it's advantageous to do it that way. But I have never done it that way. Yeah, and I don't foresee myself doing that. I just am like, okay, it's in 13. My brain is focused on the melody. I'm like, okay, I want to get to the point where I don't have to 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4. Okay, that's what I want to be.
Right. So hearing those subdivisions as their melodies versus the exact countings.
Right. I find that I play best when my brain is focused on the music, on the melody, on the bass line. If I focus my conscious brain on those things, my conscious brain can make like 2 decisions a second, where my subconscious can do like 130, 160 in a second. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, if I occupy my conscious brain with melody or progression, my subconscious brain is free to just play the song at maximum ability, with my lowest limitations.
Yeah.
So,
man, that's just so interesting. I love that. So being able to bring out make your subconscious be more conscious,
right?
Is that what you would say?
Yeah. Well, it's releasing your subconscious, because you're in just the same way that you're a slave to your subconscious, because your subconscious is making decisions for you all the time that you aren't aware of. Your subconscious is also beholden to your conscious mind, because if your conscious mind is doing things, is focusing on something like this, your subconscious can't even get there. Like, oh, you need to get your conscious mind occupied on another thing, maybe a related thing. Because I've heard like, well, why don't you just you're playing in bars, right? Just like watch the TV. Like, that's stupid. Then you're not even thinking about the song anymore. Like, you should be all in on the music.
Right, music first.
And
that's our job,
right?
As drummers.
That's the whole thing. Like, otherwise, you're just you're being selfish. Like, put your conscious brain on what's the bass player doing? Is he laying it down? Yeah. Does it sound dope? Yes, it does. Cool. Focus on that, and let your subconscious go wild on the kit. Just let it do its thing.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people could relate to that, but of course that takes so much confidence and time in the practice room to be able to really rely on your facility and your knowledge. Because I think if a new drummer trying that could be kind of scary, right? Like,
wouldn't work, because you have to have both, right? So you have to have that freedom when you're actually playing, but the freedom comes from the subconscious, or mastery rather, from hours and hours over days and weeks and months and years practicing, focused, conscious of what you're doing. That's when you build that into your subconscious. It's just that I was bad at accessing that, because I would never get out of that practice mode. I'd be on stage and I'd be still thinking about, well, what should I do next? Okay, maybe this next lick should be a paradiddle.
Right, that lick I saw on YouTube. Yeah, what was it again?
Try that.
And then you miss it, and then
like, dude, that is the worst. That's the worst way to do it. It just doesn't work.
I've been in that situation, and I try to get out of it. Again, if you're in a new city or a new gig, it's easy to first feel that way.
Yeah,
which is fine. It's normal. But if you're very comfortable and it's not the first time playing a gig and you know the people, then you can kind of get out of that consciousness, like immediacy of what you're doing, and focus on the music and other things. I kind of relate it to almost like, I mean, any athlete or a quarterback, for example. Like, when they're about to throw a ball, are they thinking, okay, I'm going to line up, I'm going to have my hands in this position, I'm going to make sure. Like, no, they're looking down the field, so they're looking at the other musician, which is the wide receiver, and they're throwing that perfect pass, but because they're so focused on the overall picture.
Yeah, one of my favorite examples of that is was Tony Robbins talking about meeting with Andre Agassi, and it was after Andre had gone from being the champ to kind of like, he had gone to, I don't know if you want to call it relative obscurity or whatever, but he had fallen from being the guy, the king of tennis. And at the time, he was like, well, I've got a problem with my backswing. And so he was really focused on his backswing, and he was practicing it all the time. And so Tony said, yeah, so when I talked to him, I said, so what are you working on right now? I said, I'm working on my backswing. It's not where I want it to be. It's like, okay. When you were the champion, were you thinking about your backswing? No. Okay. It's like
that's a great example.
That's like don't you get it? Like, your problem it's not even your backswing. The problem is you're thinking about your backswing.
Yeah.
So no amount of practicing it is actually going to even help because you're still putting that conscious brain. You can't be a master in your conscious brain.
Yeah.
You just don't have enough. There's not enough RAM. You know?
You've read The Inner Game of Tennis, right?
I haven't, but
You
I know
haven't?
that I need to
Yeah,
read that
that's-
book. Dude, I just read Atomic Habits. Well, that's not true. I listened to Atomic Habits, and it was amazing. You ever gone through that one?
Nope.
Man, game changer. I was like, Atomic Habits, pfft, like atomic bomb. Like, no, I mean atomic, like tiny, like atoms.
Yeah.
So,
What other books are you reading? Is that a major hobby of yours?
I love to read.
Besides drumming. Not that drumming is a hobby, of course, but like...
Totally.
Yeah. What else are you...
Yeah.
when you're not playing, what are you doing? You're reading?
I read. I exercise. I like to go outside. I love playing with my cat. Yeah, that's...
You do have a cute cat.
I do. Man, he rules. Yeah, Momiji the Wonder Cat. For anyone who cares, my wife and I were on a walk with my buddy Jack, and we happened upon this cat, which startled her, and then I basically sat there with them for about 10 minutes trying to get it to come to me. It wouldn't come to us at all. So we walked on, but it followed us, and we stopped for another 10 minutes or so. And then we just walked all the way back to our apartment that we were living at the time.
Where in Nashville is this?
Oh, this was in Cool Springs.
Okay.
And this guy followed us all the way back. So I went inside, got a can of tuna, and went and fed it. Ate the whole thing, got a second can, it ate the whole thing. And basically my wife for the next few days, because I was working nights, she would finish up her job because she works from home. And she would go and find the guy. And she'd do the same thing. She led him up to our porch, which was, thank God, we had a porch downstairs that he could get onto. And this cat slowly became our cat. He was essentially a feral cat. He was just out there living in the field, killing mice, and he just became our buddy. And he is, without question, the sweetest cat I have ever seen. He's just like the freaking, I come home and he jumps out, comes and greets me, and once he figures out it's me, he's just like rubbing his face on me and just he's overjoyed, and he's just the cuddliest. He does this thing where he will look me in the face and reach out and touch my face with his paw, like very slowly, and like, how are you so sweet and perfect, cat?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, your cat is adorable.
Yeah, he's awesome. Anyway, I just had to gush on my cat because I love my cat.
Okay, so Music Lab Nashville, a new venture of yours. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, so that's
new to Nashville.
Yes. Right? So my buddy Ben was involved in Drum Lab, Music Lab back in California, and then he moved out here.
And for those who don't know, so explain what that is. Is that
it was a
production, recording, or is it education?
Education facility. Okay. Yeah. And they were kind of the go-to spot back there. Sacramento, Rockland, they had a couple different spots. So it was just the Drum Lab, and then it became Music Lab. They started bringing in, other kinds of players and educators. And he just opened one up out here. So now I'm getting involved in that. Nothing has happened so far, as I've just been so busy. I've been gone all the time.
Right.
But I absolutely believe in Ben's vision, and the guy, he's just such a freaking stellar dude. And yeah, he's got the mind for it. So I know that it's going to be the spot in the next 5 years.
Is it kids of all ages?
All ages. Anybody can come in. Yep.
And it's just drums, or it's all instruments?
All instruments. Yep. Cool. Gonna be. I don't know if he has everything at this point, but
and it's just
that's the idea.
One-on-one lessons. Mm-hmm. And so I could sign up and choose you as my instructor.
Absolutely, you could.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How important is education for you?
Highly.
Like you yourself having a mentor and a teacher, then you passing that on.
Yeah. I value it immensely. I took private lessons weekly for like the first 6 or 7 years of my playing career, and that was huge for me. So the thing is, there weren't a lot of, again, I was living in a small town, so I couldn't pop down to the Baked Potato and see Ron Bruner, couldn't see Virgil Donati, see these monsters go and play. I had to, if I wanted to see monsters play, I'd have to either leave town or thank God I had this fantastic teacher named Steve Joseph, great drummer, and he showed me everything. He was just that was enormous for me. I can't stress enough how important that was in my development. So if anyone is always weird to me when people are like, well, do you think it's good to get lessons, or is it better to be self-taught? Of course it's good to get lessons. I understand that there are some monsters out there who are self-taught, but most of those guys are not self-taught, air quotes.
Right. What does that really mean?
Right. Most of them had a mentor of some kind. A lot of these guys were like, oh, this guy's self-taught. You're like, yeah, but he was hanging out with Dennis Chambers every week.
Right.
That's not self-taught anymore. You're learning from Dennis. It's different.
Yeah.
If you're not going to be taking official private lessons, then get around somebody who's better than you and
listen and absorb as much as you can,
and pick their brain when you can. That's great.
Yeah, no, I totally vibe with that, and I feel like as drummers, especially, but really any craft, you're never done learning. Right? I don't think we're ever gonna wake up one day and just be like, that is all I know, and I'm comfortable with that. I'm done.
Right.
That's what makes drumming such a beautiful journey, right? But we're all on our own path, our own levels, and it's really cool to witness your progression. And I think the point where you're at in your career is super awesome, and I don't think many drummers will reach that level in terms of the endorsements and just having the facility and such a deep understanding of the instrument. But it's cool to hear even someone like you that is still just so hungry to keep on learning.
Yeah, I've got a list of guys even right now that I'm like, I need to pick their brain about such and such, and I go and pay the money and learn the thing from that I've got at least 5 guys off the top of my head where I'm like, yeah, I need to sit down with them and ask them about this and this and this, because I need to know what their perspective on it. It doesn't end. So to go back to my first teacher, Steve, my very first drum lesson, this is probably the most important drum lesson of my life. It was the first one. So I went in and I was nervous, but I did the thing. And at some point during the lesson, Steve goes, so what do you want out of these lessons? What do you want out of drum lessons? And I said, I want to be a drummer. You know what he said to me?
And?
He goes, okay, now you are. Now what?
Right.
I'm like, oh, there isn't a level you get to where now I'm a drummer. Before that level, I wasn't considered drummer. He's like, no, you're a drummer if you drum. If you want to be a drummer and you drum,
I love that.
You're a drummer. I'm like, oh, huge light bulb moment. Then suddenly I'm like, then that just means the next question is, how good do I want to be? And the answer to that question is, I want to be as good as I possibly can be. Mm-hmm. And now the addendum to that is as good as I possibly can be while not being a psychopath, while being a functioning human being. So I'm willing to do 8-hour practice
that shit
days.
May have sailed. I don't know about that.
Yeah, maybe so. Who knows? I'm willing to do 8-hour practice days or 10 or whatever, but I can't do them every day. I have humans in my life that I love. I've got family and friends. I'm like, I need to see them. It's important. Yeah. It's important to me. That's a big thing.
So going back to practice, so you actually, I don't know if you still do this, but you would time yourself throughout the day, even if you were to just have a pad at your house or
aim for 40 hours a week.
40 hours a week, and you're logging that, no matter how long it is or where you are, what surface it is.
Yeah, if I'm I'm not doing it now because we're recording and I don't want to be like tip tapping on stuff. But I'll just sit while I'm having a conversation and work on double strokes with my feet on the floor. And I would have my iPhone, my stopwatch going. I'm like, okay.
Yep. So back to the subconscious, conscious discussion. So like it sounds like this sort of practicing would be more in your subconscious, right? Like you're not really thinking about it. So when you're at home doing this, do you have your TV on in the background, or
if I'm chilling and watching a show, I won't just chill and watch a show almost ever. I will almost invariably have a practice pad in front of me or a pillow or something, and I will be working on something.
Yeah, I started doing that because of our conversations.
And honestly, like in the quantity versus quality thing, like I'm a big fan of quality. If you can get really focused practice, awesome. But if you can't, just getting in quantity is good. Like, okay, you know what? I would rather get, let's say I'm working at 30% of the quality that I could possibly be working at, but I'm getting in 3 times as much work in, or 4 times as much work in, or heck, 5 times as a person who is focused on just like, let me get like 10 minutes of extreme focus on one thing. I'm like, bro, if you give me 5 hours of just kind of like trying stuff and just working on vaguely important thing, like that guy in 2 years is going to be light years ahead of the guy doing 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. It is what it is.
Yeah.
If you did nothing but practice double strokes on the floor with your feet while
right.
every single day.
Every day, multiple times.
Dude,
right.
you'd be blazing double strokes with your feet in a year. Like, even if you weren't going really hard with it.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Yeah, and of course these days, if you're worried about volume, you can get those low volume cymbals from Zildjian, or there's so many different practice pads now available. There's really no excuse. If you don't have gear, just literally just use a pillow or your body, your hands.
Yep. You can do the JoJo Mayer, the claps, man. You can do the Travis. I showed you the Travis Orban, the flat flams.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. That's hard.
That is,
that
dude.
hurts.
Oh, dude,
it's exposing my weakness.
And he would do it, do 70 BPM for 100 minutes straight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how? What? What is that? I don't even understand that. But he looks like the Terminator, so
I guess that's working.
Yeah, got him buff, if nothing else. You don't watch the fights?
Like,
I'm gonna get you into the fights.
I don't think you are. I've watched what fights? Like the pay-per-view, like the Mayweather versus that YouTube star.
No.
I saw that.
No, the real fights.
Legit stuff. Is it ever really real though?
UFC?
Yeah.
UFC is 100% real.
Well, yeah, I didn't know which sect, because there's like WWE, UFC. I don't even.
That's wrestling, bro.
I don't even know.
Wrestling is.
I'm so clueless about
it is
that.
a male soap opera with the winners predetermined. UFC is just literally 2 guys getting in a ring and fighting.
Yeah.
I need to get you into like the guys who are genius level fighters. There's so much to gain on the drums from watching some of these guys and learning about how they train and the way they think about fighting. Mm-hmm. There's such incredible levels of technique, tactics, creativity, all of that stuff. It's the guys who go next level are the ones who are creative. That's what's really fun to watch. But like, I'll show you some old Anderson Silva fights. That dude, his technique was insane. He was so fast, but he would also do things to people that just nobody else did. Like, he'd punch people in the legs. Nobody does that.
Yep.
He punch you in the legs and the knees. Like, who? No one was prepared. They're all like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah, I guess you win now. Like, I'm not even gonna like.
He was just crushing people because he was smart and creative.
Yeah, that applies to musicianship, right?
Yeah,
being the most creative and having that good philosophy and
try something you haven't seen someone else do. Mm-hmm. Like that. It's a big thing.
So there was a video that we were tagged in at Pearl. This guy literally it's like a TikTok video where like there's some random song in the background, but it's really a good song that's synced with the video. And this guy comes out and he bashes a trombone over the guy, right? An actual trombone. And then he picks up a Pearl bass drum and he literally, I mean, the head must have been either fake or just completely loose. I don't even think it was real because, so he bashes it over the guy's head and his head goes through the bass head and he falls over like all dramatic. And it's absolutely hilarious. Like some guy tagged us like, oh no, like how could they
do this?
I'm like, I'm not going to engage with this.
No.
Actually, I think I did comment. I was like from the Pearl account, like that's like hilarious.
Heinous.
Yeah, you know. Like I have nothing to say.
Yeah. Well, hey, whatever. To each their own. Some people want to play the drums. Some people.
Yeah, it's logo exposure.
Yeah, dude. Whatever.
Bad press is still good press, something like that.
Bad press is press. That's for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, this has been awesome. We've talked about a bunch. So yeah, I want to wrap it up. I kind of want to try this segment where we just like ask our guests like very quick, like it doesn't have to be one word answers, but just like a few words.
Okay.
You know. Okay. So first question: Nashville hot chicken. Are you into it?
Yes.
What level of spiciness or hotness?
I usually go for medium at Prince's, which is still considered spicy, but I won't. I'm not wimpy. I don't get mild. I can do the medium.
That's fair. Okay, question 2. If you weren't playing drums, you'd be doing...
Teaching martial arts.
Question 3. Who's an underrated drummer that you think people should be following or you're really into?
Oh, underrated. I still think that Mason Guidry is underrated. Even though he's starting to get acknowledged, I think he's one of the greatest of all time. So yeah, I'm going with Mason.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Next piece of gear that's on your wish list or you're about to get.
Ooh. Man. Well, I do have a whole list of cymbals.
It can be multiple, I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some new cymbals from Meinl. I got
nice.
a couple of. I need some splashes and some stuff, but I need to get one of those handy dandy little mini snare things that they have.
Is it the popcorn snare? Is it actual drum or is it? Like
yeah, I mean, but it's like there's no bottom on it. Just
yeah.
You put it on like a little tiny tom stand or like whatever. Mm-hmm. You can hook it on a freaking cymbal stand. I need some of those. That's probably.
I think some of the local shops in Nashville might carry them.
Yep, I'm
Nelson's or Forks or.
I'll get some.
Cool.
Yep.
All right, man. Where can people follow you if they want to get a hold of you or check you out online?
Don't follow me. I don't like being followed. I carry a weapon, so don't sneak up on me.
Okay, well, you obviously took that the wrong way, but okay. Where can people take... okay,
Instagram.
I'll be more specific. Instagram,
you can...
You're on TikTok now, aren't you?
I am on TikTok.
Okay, so for the younger... Okay, for that generation.
Yeah, I'm experimenting with it. I don't really fully get it, and I think a lot of it is very cancerous, but...
Yes.
I am on it. But you can find me on TikTok at Slathen Netner.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Slayton?
Slathen. Yeah.
Is that really your username?
Yeah. It's just like Nathan Sletner, but it's Slathen Netner.
That's so you.
Yeah, totally. I think it's Slathen_Netner. But then on Instagram, it's Nathan_Sletner.
Okay, so that's, yeah.
And
hearing that makes me think of Slytherin.
What Harry Potter house are you, by the way?
I don't know. I think I'd probably be Gryffindor.
Yeah.
I'm like
I took an unofficial one and I got Slytherin. I took the official Pottermore and I got Gryffindor. So I'm somewhere near there.
Yeah.
I could definitely go.
You might know Hufflepuff.
No. I ain't. Tell you what, because I'm not good at finding
wrong with that.
No. Very Seinfeldian of you.
we just lost half the listening base. 2 people that were already listening. Yeah.
Well, no, I have friends who are Hufflepuffs, but I am not one, and I'll tell you why. They're good at finding stuff, and I am just awful at finding things. I can I can lose
physical things.
Physical things.
Oh, like misplaced items.
Oh, yes. So I have rules that I've made for myself about where I can put things, because otherwise they will go missing. Like keys, I literally have 3 places, and I mean 3.
Yep.
I'm holding up 2 fingers. 3 places as I hold up 2 fingers. I have 3 places in the house.
My mind added the other finger. I knew what you were talking about.
I dare not show you this finger. But I'm like, it's this side of the table, this side of the table, or it literally one spot in my room on a bookshelf. That's it. Otherwise, it will be gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about drum keys? Are those attached to your keychains?
I lose
pockets?
them. I just have enough of them that I find them.
Yeah.
I just put them in every damn room in the house.
The old adage, right? It's always losing a drum key.
That's what they say. That's what, just like Mama used to say. Always losing a drum key. She would say in her sleep. Wail in her sleep. Oh, Mom.
So that's how you got into the drums, because you're deranged. Okay.
I'm a deranged mother.
You're just like
wailing about what's a drum key? Always losing a drum key. There are keys to drums? Yeah, but my rule, that's like the Navy SEAL thing, like the 2 is 1 and 1 is none thing. Like I just took that to the extreme. I just put them everywhere. You ever heard that?
I don't think no.
2 is 1, 1 is none.
2 is 1, 1 is none.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I think that's a Navy SEALs thing. It's
Sounds like
you gotta have extras of your stuff, because one of them won't work or go missing. 2 is 1, 1 is none.
I dig it. Okay. I guess that's it. Well, thanks for your time, Nate.
You're welcome, Dan.
So uncomfortable. Whatever, we'll figure something out.
No, this is great. Honestly, I feel like this first episode is a success because we got through the actual questions you wanted to ask, but we also got to just kind of BS, which I honestly feel like is important for this kind of thing.
I think so too.
So I hope enough of our BSing is left after editing.
Okay, thanks so much for tuning in to this first episode. You can support this podcast by subscribing on the platform of your choice, sharing this with a friend, and definitely check us out on Instagram at Nashville Drummers Podcast. We'll see you in the next episode.